Hello, welcome again to OCD, Obsessive Consumer Disorder. A series that explores the myriad lives of partners, promoters, and professionals in the media, marketing, creative, and film spaces. Today we have Rohit Sharma with us. Rohit, thank you so much for coming on the show. A professional who's dabbled in most of these spaces, but at the heart is a pure businessman. Rohit, this has been long overdue. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for making it.
Pleasure is all mine.
As you already know, the show is called Obsessive Consumer Disorder. We try and understand whichever business you're in, we try and understand what your take is on that consumer.
Sure.
Right? And because it's largely about marketing, we will also try to understand what is your strategies around, Rohit, we like to start off from your early days, and so that whoever is listening has a personal connect with
Sure.
you and understands where you're from
Sure.
before they put other things into perspective. So where were you growing? Where were you when you were growing up? And what was school days like? And
Sure. So although you have seen me in Hyderabad from last almost 4 years,
Yeah.
I was born in Patiala.
Okay.
So I've been Punjabi by birth. So I've been staying in north part of the country
India,
for most of the time.
Sure.
So I did my studies from a place called Ambala, heavily surrounded by the cantonment and the army influence.
Sure.
A bit of impact has come from that kind of an army culture, and of course the bit of Punjabi in me. As they say, you keep growing with every year, so I think Hyderabad has also left a lot of impact on my personal thought process. The mix of aggression of north and the calculativeness of south, I think
Right.
that's something that I really enjoy.
Very
on here.
interesting mix.
Yeah.
So where were your schooling days? Around Ambala?
Yeah, I studied
Around
in
Ambala.
Ambala only. Then I came to Delhi for my post-graduation.
Sure.
So I think I spent about 17 years in Delhi, including the early years of my career.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of influence of Delhi in me as well.
In Rohit today.
Yeah.
So Rohit, you have dabbled through multiple things. You've finished an MBA at Asia Pacific Institute.
Yeah.
What was the MBA course around?
So I think like we were discussing offline also, it typically happens that your studies don't reflect in your business. So
90% of the time that's the case.
So I think in my case it has been almost kind of a roller coaster ride. I did my MBA in finance. I always had a huge inclination towards numbers and finance and balance sheets, but I didn't really get chance after my first job to kind of pursue much into finance. I was straight away put into the digital sides of it, or some bit of tech part, which I started building a liking about that. But the benefit of knowing the balance sheet and also knowing the the tech behind the business is I think the need of the hour. A lot of modern day businesses have kind of cruised towards a mix of digital. I think digital
Sure.
is the base today, so that has really helped. But I think out and out my education has been heavily towards finance.
Finance, okay. You've worked with some interesting organizations, Rohit, and how long has it been since your first job?
14 years.
Okay, so you've been at Dainik Jagran Times of India,
Yeah.
a lot of media gigs, then you moved into Call Health,
Yeah.
right? You spent some time there, then you went to EC Council,
Yeah.
and today you're doing another very interesting gig in the mobility space. You work with Abhibus,
Right.
India's fastest growing mobile bus operator, sort of
Yeah.
a marketplace for
Yeah.
bus operators. So I just want to sort of go layer by layer. I just want to understand how did the media gig help you, and what were your media days about?
Yeah. I think it was a good start, given that I think media gives you a lot of discipline. Especially, I think since beginning I've been associated with the digital part of the media.
Sure.
So there, I think every minute counts. And the business is also counted by every minute. So I think my educational background of knowing numbers and the fact that this side of the business requires you to look
always
at
alive.
numbers.
It's always alive. Yeah.
Always, if you blink and you miss, you will
Yeah.
end up spending extra dollars on marketing.
Correct.
If you don't look at the customer's perspective, you might be catering to a wrong set of
Absolutely.
customer. So I think that was pretty interesting. And there's a fun fact behind this kind of diversification of the roles that I've been blessed to have. I think in the media also I got different taste of works. Like I worked
Right.
for a brand called Speaking Tree.
Sure.
Perhaps the only large scale spiritual media in India.
Sure.
There I got a chance to work with a lot of spiritual gurus and understood how they make money, how their unit economics
What
work,
their model is,
what
yeah.
their model is, how are they able to kind of influence so many people and get them behind that. And some of the numbers are unbelievably high. You know, some of the spiritual gurus would have followers in crores.
Yeah.
And the days also change. So I think as a life learning also, it's very important to look how when they are at their highs they mint money, and when they're at their lows they are, you know,
They're
some of them are
obsolete, like
even
they don't even
behind the
exist.
bars. So
Oh, yeah.
so
That
I,
also,
yeah, I
yeah.
wouldn't really take names, but I think I got a chance to work with many of them.
Sure.
And on the business side of it, so also to make sure that we don't lose money and we make a scalable business out of it. I think during my early years, I also got to work on the IPL franchise. You know, the first edition, when nobody knew the taste of IPL and everybody was underestimating them. What is the kind of right bid size? What's the business model? There
Was
no
this 2007?
2006-7.
2006-7,
So
right.
so that was the time people didn't know how to make money out of IPL.
Of a sports franchise.
Of a sports franchise, and we also didn't know how much to bid really, right?
Correct.
And some of the smarter business people had better ideas about how much money
How to
put in.
arrive at the price, how to present the price. Yeah.
So I think those have been some
Yeah, while you were in the media space.
part, yeah.
When did you make the switch from out of media, Rohit?
So I think till 2016 I was in media.
In
so I
media,
think last 3.5-4 years when I moved to Hyderabad, I think this
Yeah.
was my first non-media digital stint.
Sure.
So I got a chance to work with one of the exciting brands of Hyderabad then, Call Health. It was setting to
Yeah.
disrupt how digital how digital business happens.
There seemed to be a great trajectory ahead of that company,
Yeah.
and it's still operational. But
Yeah.
when they came into the market, there was so much noise.
So if you
about
look at the risk reward proposition, I think Call Health is an epitome how you can take a great risk and look for a better reward. So I think the model that they tried to build was everything about health in one platform, right? So that's like a vision. That's a risky game because like we were discussing earlier, also the customer is also becoming smarter because of Google. So they don't really go for certain ailments to the doctor or even to the pharmacist. They try to take their decisions on their own. So
but that said, that model was disrupting so many business models that, like you said, it's heavily risky.
So we were into diagnostics, we were into medicine delivery, we were into doctors at home, nurse at home, and all of these business lines, if you see, the customer is the biggest competition to this business because customer tries to do all of this on their own. They do the diagnostics on their own. They try to play with their own medicines. They can take care of their parents, being a nurse also. So I think these are very exciting times and learning times also for this industry to see what's the perfect mix. You know, how to really influence the customer to take the right decisions. And I think economy is also ready to kind of make people afford those kind of health services at home.
And I think a lot of money flowing in from, I mean, until 2012-13, there wasn't a lot of funding coming into the country. But now, if you have an exciting space and exciting idea, there are backers for it.
Absolutely.
And that's how the whole dynamics have changed. And you were talking about how there are a lot more large loss-making organizations in this country and still thriving and surviving and figuring out where the next pool of cash comes from, right?
So, I mean, I joke with my friends. I think if you, some of the popular and so to say successful businesses that you see today, if you spoke about them 20 years back, nobody would believe that these would exist. Like we were speaking about, you know, taxi hailing companies, and we were speaking about, you know, you can book your own bike and there's no operator on the ground also. If you spoke somebody even 10 years back, they would say, you know, hotels means these branded hotels. You can't have a hotel chain that is being managed by, you know, a platform. So I think platform and aggregation has become the king, and that's been the biggest learning for business people like us also, to make sure that how we you know, drive on the back of this kind of a wave that is going, where people love the platform, they trust on the platform, ratings, reviews, you know,
at some level the platform becomes bigger than the service provider.
Absolutely.
For some reason, and it grows bigger than the service
Google
provider.
is the perfect example. Facebook is the example. Now I think it's not about people, it's about just the algorithms that are driving this.
Correct. Interesting that you sort of meandered and found your way through media into the aggregation space. Both with Call Health, which is aggregating the whole healthcare industry in one platform, and now with Abhibus, which is more niche but still is a big sort of an industry. And so you speak a lot about your passion for cricket and how you apply a lot of these learnings from cricket in business. Maybe you could illustrate a couple of examples to us
Absolutely.
of how you picked up something from the game. And
I think there are various aspects to it. I think depending on what you're looking at, cricket teaches you lessons on profitability. Cricket teaches you lesson about teamwork,
Yeah.
right? You know how sometimes a wicket keeper can win you match. Sometimes maybe a good fielder can do 3
Absolutely.
runouts and win you match. So maybe a lesson, translated into the business language, that no team member is is unimportant or less
Yeah.
important than anyone
or
else.
say, on the other side, no team member is all powerful and is the leader of the
Absolutely,
pack,
absolutely.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah, even if one team member, let's say, hits a double century, the others and their mistakes could actually lead to. So it's all about empowering and also defining the roles very clearly.
Sure.
I think cricket over the years has also changed. Earlier one guy would do multiple jobs,
Sure.
but they are super specialized now.
Correct.
Sometimes you get a guy in the team just because he fields well.
Absolutely.
So, and if you translate that to business today,
Yeah.
there are, let's say, digital media experts who are getting you, better business, better
Yeah.
conversions,
building
better
your revenue and giving you a whole new stream, etc. Yeah. So you're saying that individual specializations have become so exclusive and so
Yeah.
so sought after in the market today. And
Yeah.
it's wonderful. I mean, it's very nice to see somebody apply sports strategy to
Yeah. And like we
business.
were speaking, even the turf is not always same.
Yeah,
So like your example, like when you deal with the clients, not all clients are similar, like the pitch of the
Absolutely,
game, right?
absolutely.
So you also evolve, you also keep learning
Adapt.
from the
Yeah. I think adapting to serving better, adapting to giving them comfort is part and parcel of our game. But I think for on our end of the table, I think it's more also about following certain processes around arriving at solutions.
Yeah.
Because solutions, there needs to be a design. Right?
Yeah,
There needs to be
yeah.
a design, and around that design you can always, based on the category we're working with or the client we're working with, there can be some additions and modifications,
Sure.
but there needs to be a design to how we arrive at a solution. But like you said, adapting is king, and it's very, very important.
Yes.
Rohit, I believe you spend a lot of time in empowering people to be successful, and that is part of your people management strategy, etc. So could you delve a little more on that and give me a few examples, or give all of our listeners a few examples around
Sure,
this?
sure. So, I think when you talk about large scale businesses, it's easy to start a business.
Sure.
It's easy to even convert a business turn a business into profitable. But I think to maintain sustainable profitability
Yeah.
is the need of the hour today. And I think that's where people are very, very important. I think whatever you can't do, you ask people to do typically, right?
Correct.
Whatever your people can't do, you make processes for those things,
Correct.
right? So I very strongly believe in making SOPs for all the team members, making a clear-cut KPIs for them. Like I was telling you my
Yeah.
example also. For a very long period of time in my career, I thought I was working very hard, but I didn't know whether I'm contributing or not,
Sure.
right? And I had my personal experiences, like I told you, the D-Day, the appraisal days when
Yeah.
you really, look at your teams and they're not happy.
Yeah.
Even if, like, you don't know how much is too much. I have seen people, even those who got, let's say, 40% appraisal, they're not happy because they feel that, they deserved something better.
Sure.
And on the other hand, even the guy who gets 5%, obviously he wouldn't be happy.
Absolutely.
So if you make a very strong SOP,
Yeah.
which translate into their KPIs,
Yeah.
which divides into year, month, week and days also,
Yeah.
they would know the purpose of coming to the office. They would really know that, I'm going to achieve this today.
And this is my goal, and this is what I want
And
to
this
do.
is my goal. And I think that, like I was telling you earlier also, when you sit on the appraisal table, the manager should speak the least.
Correct.
The employee or the team member and his number should speak, and I think that's the best scenario that a manager can really build, that everybody is working for one particular goal, that is the revenue delta or the delta of change that the employee can bring.
Sure. So your style or your mantra to empowering people is getting them aware of what they can contribute,
Yeah.
and what is it that they need to achieve over
And
the-
how is it linked to the business? How is it linked to
yeah.
the last dollar that the company will earn
Sure.
and the profitability from that
So
dollar?
building context from there and then getting to a micro level of what they need to.
Absolutely.
Very nice. And I think I was just talking to you about how it is very difficult to set this thing in motion first, and second, even more difficult to stick by it. So you probably could reflect a little and tell us about your impetus on review systems.
Sure.
And how you stick to it. How do you stick to this plan? How do you stay on course? I'm sure you can't do it all by yourself, and you have to layer that into multiple sort of roles, right? And how do you do that?
So again, I would, let's say, take an example of a cricket match.
Sure.
So let's say you're the India team captain, and let's say an Australian team is coming, or a team that cannot play spin better.
Sure.
So you would divide the role always. You tell your spinner that, boss, you have to take wickets, and perhaps the faster bowlers just have to contain.
Correct.
Right. So that's your strategy. That's how by default the games in subcontinents are drafted.
Correct.
The captains would tell them to hold runs to the pacers, and spinners have to take wickets. But what if it doesn't go well? What if your best spinners go for runs?
Correct.
Then, to answer to your question, I think the reviews or the course corrections are very important. And as a captain would do review not just after every over, but I think within the overs also you would change your field
Strategy
placement and you would
and,
change
yeah,
your strategy.
correct.
So I think I've seen in modern times captains or managers, as I would call them in a professional sense, managers would get a little bored and get carried away and stop doing reviews, and they would rely on maybe the regular quarterly reviews or monthly reviews. I think the key is to keep a watch on the KPIs and start thinking from that bowler's perspective. How is he bowling? What is he thinking?
What is he thinking?
Is he getting demotivated after taking that boundary?
Correct.
Right. So I think the key is to timely review it on regular basis and to do the course correction.
Sure. Rohit, wonderful how you picked up another cricket example, and I'm completely digging this conversation now. So, in the last 10 years, there's been a heavy focus on businesses growing digitally, right?
Sure.
And you are now bang in the middle of that domain, right? You have a business built on digital. You have a business built on data, access to data, right? So, what has your journey been with consumers changing digitally? So, how has a consumer who started out adopting to a Redbus or an Abhibus a decade ago changed today?
So I think thanks to the transformation in the entire ecosystem, it's not that only the businesses are coming in. You see the entire ecosystem, including the education spectrum. Companies like ours now are hiring more and more people from IITs and IIMs and ISBs, and I think that set of young blood, they bring a lot of analytical power, right? It's not an ad hoc decision that we would take. There is a lot of data backing, even when it is about our customers' life cycle or what is happening in the market, and picking up data from that. There's a lot of mathematical calculation behind it. So I think it's the digital, and the digital has also kind of broken down into various parts, whether it is analytics, whether it is AI ML, whether it is social media marketing. It all boils down to the unit economics, right? I think businesses that thrive and survive for longer run, they know how much money they're losing from every single customer for the single transaction as well as the lifetime transactions. I think once you have that clarity of mind and you invest your monies in the right directions, there are higher chances that your business will succeed.
And your business will stay profitable in the longer run, right? Yeah. Rohit, today you're the CEO at Abhibus with more than 100,000 routes, and there's an evolving consumer that you're sort of catering to, has many needs as to why he needs to travel, and has a very, very clear understanding of why he's choosing the platform he's choosing. So, how are you positioning this to your consumer? How are you positioning Abhibus to your consumer?
Yeah. So I think the challenge with aggregators like us, not just Abhibus, even when you look at, for example, Oyo or Ola, Uber, the challenge with aggregator is that you're not providing the service, you're a platform, right? So how you can win the trust of the customer, or how you can appease them, I think the easiest word is experience, as they always say. But what defines the experience? I think first is customer support. Right. In our business, cancellations is a very common phenomenon. Customers cancel, operators cancel. So how do you cater to this cancellation policy? I think I personally love this idea of no question asked return policy to the customer. I think this is something that we've been learning from the West very commonly, right? So I think we keep the customer in the center, and if it is a cancellation, we try to kind of remediate and gratify the customer to the fullest. So I think customer support and investing into that kind of a backend that makes you available and a human available to support the customer, whether it is 2 a.m. that he missed his bus at, right? So I think customer support is very, very important. I think second part is using technology to provide a very good experience, whether it is how your app looks, whether it is the tracking of the bus, whether it is your ability to connect to the bus driver, so that India is a very complex infrastructure. Sometimes your pickup point could be this, and the bus really goes past the flyover. So I think connecting the customer to the bus and the bus driver and the conductor, I think is very, very important.
So these are all the touch points you feel are extremely critical around the experience. Around the experience of the platform. Right? And apart from that, I think you're also widening your sort of play here, in the sense that you're not just sticking to that one bus ride. You're also started exploring other areas where you can sort of give the consumer an Abhibus experience. So could you delve a little bit on that?
I think the modern terminology that I hear very often is super app. Everybody is trying to build their app as super app. Gone are the days when you would have one app for one purpose only. So I think our endeavor is to kind of provide, a platform where customer gets most of his travel needs. Whether it is hotels, you can book, the widest variety of budget hotels from AbhiBus today. Whether it is trains that we are getting into, whether it is intercity information, which is highly scattered right now. There's hardly any. If you're, let's say, for example, you're coming from Amritsar, you're going to, visit Red Fort. The bus would drop you at the bus station. But what do you do after that? Do you take a Ola, or do you take a bus or a metro or a rickshaw? There is no ecosystem that basically helps you,
supports you in the last mile
with the content, with the bookings, and with the transactions. I think our endeavor is to build an ecosystem which makes us the super app of travel.
Sure. Very interesting, and I think that will also generate a lot of new revenue streams for you, number one. Number two, maybe retention could be higher. I mean, I'm sure you've done your math around it. So, Rohit, what do you see as the future of AbhiBus? I know that you're now trying to become the super app and giving out a lot of experiences, but how do you see growth here, and what is your visibility on the scaling that this organization can sort of make?
So there are broadly two areas. I think our desire is to grow both horizontally and vertically. So when you want to grow horizontally, you'll have to create newer business streams, like we just spoke about. So you want to create those new avenues of businesses in travel business only, whether it is bus rental. You can take bus for a longer period. It's all your own, and providing it at an affordable price. Or it is booking a hotel or booking a train. So horizontally provide them better revenue so that your app becomes a super app. And also vertically, look around at newer markets. You will be really surprised. Within India and outside, there are multiple states that are still not having the buses digitized. In our neighboring countries or some of the states where buses are still the only medium to book buses is offline, right? So we are trying to bring a lot of new states online, their entire inventory online, and connect to the customer and use the technology to predict, to provide that kind of a last mile connectivity at an affordable price to the customer. I think that leaves us with a humongous opportunity to capture. I think this is just the early years of even the bus booking industry in general. I think the coming 5-10 years are very exciting.
With the kind of infrastructure the country intends to build, road infrastructure, I'm sure it will be great growth in this front. Rohit, you are just a facilitator to a larger game. There are two primary stakeholders. One is the operator and one is the rider. Can we talk a little bit more about the operator side and what AbhiBus does for the operator?
I think it's very, very critical. It's very critical to keep the provider in center also, because if they don't make money, they won't be really into this business for long period. They won't improve their services.
And if they don't sustain, you won't exist.
And the customer wouldn't have a good experience, right? You have heard that in the past. I wouldn't name them, but whether in the transport business only, whether it is into cabs or hotels, I think aggregators have had bad experience when their operators or their providers were not really supporting, or they were not making money, right? You've seen in the early years of certain travel business, the operators and providers were rewarded better, but over the years, their rewards and their commissions have gone down. I think when that happens, ultimately the customer suffers.
Correct.
So I think we are connected to our operators. I think this is one of the strong legacy points that we have. Since we started as a SaaS company, we know what the pain points of the operators are. We know exactly how much money they make, and we exactly know how much business they want to make. For example, it's an occupancy game. So when an operator is not having more than 50% of the seats filled, that he's going to lose money. So how do you help him get his occupancy better? How do you make sure on the other side the customer meets that bus seat, sits on that bus seat, occupies that bus seat, and has a pleasure experience. When he gets down from the bus also, AbhiBus as a service provider or any other service provider are there to kind of help him out with the last mile connectivity. I think if the entire journey of travel, if you're able to kind of make a pleasure experience, I think it's a win-win for both customer and operator.
So it's no different from the way you treat your team and how you empower them. You try and understand exactly what is in it for them, right, and illustrate it for them. The same thing you're doing with the operator. You're meeting the basics, which is how many bums on seats to make sure that he's sustainable. And over and above that, how do you facilitate that for him, right? So I'm sure there must be algorithms that help you meet an operator's number. right? And that must be the
and
philosophy.
I think end of the day, I always believe whether it is a human or a business or cricket team, success breeds confidence.
Correct.
Right? So even if you take an example of cricket, the way cricket was treated 20 years back and today, cricketers are millionaires.
Correct.
Because I think everybody worked on the unit economics. The more cricket is growing, the more money is coming into this business. So I think everybody, if we start looking at players and their fitness, which is my team, for example, and their fitness, the game will be better. I think the spectators, which is my customer, will have a pleasure experience. And I think the entire industry in general will grow better.
Absolutely. Rohit, any great campaign that you can think of which you've really enjoyed, and it might or might not be in this space where you're operating today, but over the recent times?
There are a lot of examples that I can state, but I think my favorite is, I think I was blessed to be associated with a company called AC Council. They're into cyber security credentialing, and I learned the art of influencer marketing to a great extent over there. So I understood when it is about cyber security, which is a very complex game, right? Companies do not trust on anybody unless it is supported by an influencer. And who could be the influencer in the game of cybersecurity? Those are CTOs and CIOs of the large scale companies, large scale consulting companies like Deloitte and PwC.
Either that or guys that come from a deep end tech, well known for being a deep end tech seated kind of a
background. So that as a tech enthusiast, when you will believe when they say that this is the best solution available. So I think we created a tool or a platform called Cyber Talks, something similar to this types, where we started reaching out to the who's who of cybersecurity, and we started doing a webinar sorts to start with. And I think even we were amazed with the kind of response that we started getting. We started getting decision makers, we started getting the tech enthusiasts on that platform, and very soon we started touching 5,000, 10,000 count on the webinars, and we started putting in our products into that, the awareness of our products, the awareness of the solution that we provide. So that particular campaign within very short period worked so well for us that we started getting inquiries from American tech decision makers that we want to be part of this thing, and the list of clientele started just growing.
So the opinion leaders started reaching out to you saying we want to be part of the platform, we want to have a conversation around cybersecurity.
So building a niche like this just before somebody else does it, it attracts a lot of opinion leaders to start applying for it. Even Speaking Tree journey was a similar example where initially we worked on getting the top 10 spiritual gurus, the top 10 names which are really respected, like Sri Sadhguru, all these were the initial the takers on the platform that we put efforts to bring. But then when that happened and we get the followers on the platform, then we started getting inquiries from the other spiritual gurus also who were ready to invest being part of this platform.
To be a part of Speaking Tree. Very nice. So basically it cascaded into micro market gurus also trying to sort of be a part of this. Extremely nice. Rohit, what does the next 4-5 years ahead of you look like? How do you see yourself operating? What is the spaces you want to get into, and what is the roles you want to play?
See, I think it's the toughest question that anybody can answer because I think there is a difference between the desires and the realities. And I want to be more realistic and just try to enjoy the game, just try to take every over at a time and know what you want to chase in that particular over. I think that's very, very important to look at the realistic scenario. I think results just follow when you put your best and you are able to demonstrate certain excellence and demonstrate certain kind of growth numbers. It's not about the personal achievements. I think they just come. Like when I was watching the match yesterday, I really loved the way Kohli has really the career graph has looked like. So I was looking in T20s. His strike rate in 2017 was 140. In 2018 it was 160, and 2019 this year his strike rate is 200 plus.
Wow.
So how can an individual just focus on his fitness, his work, his passion? And I think, I'm sure he doesn't know the numbers, or maybe he knows, but it's just improving.
Correct.
So personally, since I'm so much into love with cricket and I feel it is like our life, the way we live life, cricket rules are exactly like that. I think it's just about giving your best and taking one day and 1 month and 1 quarter at a time and just grow with that.
Wonderful. I think that's a very nice strategy. Keep the goals short. Keep the goals short and keep sort of moving ahead and reassessing your goals. So, what is the most crucial part, according to you, of making successful communication?
Successful communication or businesses?
I'm sure you'll bring up a cricket example here.
I'll try not to.
Yeah. No, but I'll be interested because I remember some time ago. I know one of the ways you could link it. So it's very interesting.
Let me hear it from you.
Yeah, successful communication. Okay, maybe I could answer that question. I think it's about knowing the pitch. It's about knowing how well do you know the pitch, how well do you know your opponent, or in our case the consumer, and then based on that your business positions itself and then speaks to the.
I mean, again, if I were to continue on that part, I think one of the great things that cricket do is that it breaks the boundaries.
Correct.
Right? How did you ever imagine, like when we were born, or maybe a few decades back, that somebody who's from Jharkhand is loved in Chennai? And
Correct.
you know who I'm
Correct.
talking about.
Correct.
I'm talking
Correct.
about Mahendra Singh Dhoni.
Correct.
Like people love Mahendra Singh
As
Dhoni
if he's one
in
of their
Chennai,
own,
as if he's from Tamil Nadu.
Son of the
right?
soil, yeah.
He's son of the soil. So I think that's something really amazing. I think the communication, and now to answer to your question, if the communication is simple,
Sure.
and if it connects to the hearts of the consumers,
Sure.
I think that's the best way of the communication. I think that's what cricket does, right?
Sure.
It's very simple. People know the rules are very, very simple, and then it doesn't matter whether the actor is local or whether the actor is from some other soil. It just connects with the customer.
But before you to arrive at simplicity is tough. So the thing is, the objective is to basically understand what are their aspirations and what are their and how do I fit in.
And you are the guru of that, man. I call it KYC. Knowing your customer, I think, is very, very important. If you know your customer, if you know their personas, I think you can draft the communication so that it suits.
But it's never ending because the nuances around everybody are constantly changing.
True.
So just like you review your team, I think we also need to constantly review the brand's customer and brand's consumer. So I think there was a good conversation around that question. Very interesting question and very specific to your domain. What is the biggest insight around which the travel business functions or the mobility business functions, right? I know that discounting is a big thing, but I refuse to believe that it is the only thing or the most important thing, because even though we're in India, I refuse to believe that's the only thing. So
I'll tell you, surprisingly, it is not. I mean, I see it every day. Customers are, and in general, I would say customers are not looking for discounts.
Sure.
I'll tell you, 7 out of 10 of my customers, they are not interested in discounts.
Okay.
Now, to answer to your question, I think the way consumers travel today, that's also changing very rapidly.
Sure.
Right? Bus travel is not the bus travel that it used to be 10 years back.
Absolutely.
Right? Air travel is not the air travel that it used to be in early
Actually,
days.
airports look like bus stands
Right.
now. Yeah.
They all look modern, and even the buses and the services have really improved.
Correct.
So there are a lot of air travelers have moved to buses, and vice versa.
Sure.
Right? IRCTC has really grown.
Yeah.
So I think the travel in general, the trends have increased. People travel more.
Sure.
I think the government is also trying to really push people to travel within India and abroad. I think that's a good news for travel partners like us. But in general, we have seen the numbers are really growing very, very fast. Bus industry is a $10 billion industry, and I wouldn't be surprised when we're talking next it will be $15. That's how it is growing.
Sure.
It's $15 billion.
Sure.
So more people are traveling. People are ready to spend more on their travel and leisure, and they just want a better experience. They don't want discounts.
It is a game of experience.
It's about experience. It's about availability. It's about options that you want. People have their own set of bus operators that they really love. They want to have repeat travels with that. Even in air, as you and I travel, we know that there is a specific provider that we have to always go with.
Correct.
So I think punctuality, experience, quality, all of this put together is something that customers are really excited about.
Rohit, are you just a cricket nerd, or do you also get to play a game sometimes?
It actually goes back to my childhood very interestingly, why I talk about cricket a lot. So, my structure is such that everybody used to think that I'm a fast bowler.
Absolutely. You look the part.
So I always wanted to be a fast bowler, and the misery is that I was good in studies, but whenever I would hit the field, I would try to run hard. My stance would look really nice, but when I bowl, the ball would just bounce in front of me. So that was the tragedy, and I always thought that I can't play cricket. So at a very early stage, I would spend time on the field, but I would do commentary there.
Wow.
And you don't see that very often. Kids waking up at 4:30, hitting
Going
the
with
ground
such
with passion,
yeah.
and you can't play. When you try to bat also, 9 out of 10 times it will hit the wicket.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm very close to cricket. I've observed, I've watched.
You're probably one of the most interesting stories I've heard. I mean, you're a very Harsha Bogle's kind of a story where it didn't matter whether you could play the game, but you loved the game anyway.
Yeah, and it used to be funny because my parents would say, you don't play, then why do you go to the pitch? Why do you go to the field? I think it's just that I just enjoyed being there.
So Rohit, another interesting question. I'm sorry I'm asking you these questions in quick succession. What is one thing you love about what you do, and what is something that you hate, could be a strong word, knowing you, but wish you could change?
I'll just link it to my. I try to link it to my family. I try to do a lot of work-life balance. Everybody does it. I think it's a great thing to do. But often I think the feeling that you get on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening, when your weekend starts, and you feel like there are 5 more things that you wish that you could do.
Sure.
There are those 5 more pitch emails that you could send to the clients. There are 2 more of these replies that you could do.
Sure.
That is very important. I think my wife beautifully describes that as the passion for work.
Sure.
I think that's something that I really look forward to contributing. Sure. And since I know my contribution and I know the value of my contribution as much as I know the value of contribution of each of my team members, I think it's very important that we switch off and we stop focusing on our work at the right time. And that's the dilemma I always see myself being into.
Sure.
So that's something that I'm personally working on improving better, so that I don't compromise on my work also, but I still focus more on the personal life.
Nice. So you see yourself balancing both.
Yeah, I try to. I think often we all fail. I fail more than usual, but I think that's the dilemma in the life.
But the answer was very diplomatic. There is no love or hate. It's more about the balance.
There's a desire to do better, do better at in the personal space, and do better in the professional space also.
Rohit, I'll move on to the next question. Any advice to what is your common advice to most of the young people that come into your team, or come into business, or come into any consumer facing activity? What is your advice to them?
See, I believe that, like most of us, many youngsters that I see around, they end up getting caught into a wrong job.
Sure.
It's okay to get into a wrong job.
Sure.
But then whatever job that you are into today, just know your value.
Right.
Just know your contribution. And I think once you start loving that, even being into a wrong sector or a wrong job or a wrong domain,
sure.
I think you'll develop a liking for that.
Sure.
If you don't, then over the period of time you'll find a better job.
Sure.
But I think whatever you are into today, just don't get digressed from that. Just put your contribution to that. Learn new technologies, learn new methods that are prevailing
new
today,
strategies,
and you will start
methods.
liking the job. I think most of us, we have not really come from fancy lifestyles, right? So the money that we get for the work today, if we do justice,
you have to value it and do justice to it. Absolutely. So Rohit, if not in business, what other profession would you be in? I think
certainly not cricket.
No, I thought you would say commentary, so I think I know the answer.
Yeah, that could be one of the options. Yeah, I wanted to try being as an RJ.
Right.
So. But then later I realized that maybe either I don't have a good comic sense, or my voice is not really suitable for that kind of thing.
You have too precious a face to be an RJ, Rohit. You should be in front of the camera, not behind the camera. Rohit, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure having you, and it was a great conversation. I wish we could go on, but yeah, we try to time these conversations. But it was an absolute pleasure. And it was very, very interesting having you on the show. Thank you so much. That was another episode of Obsessive Consumer Disorder with the multifaceted Rohit Sharma. I love his work ethic. I love his energy that he brings to the table, and I wish I can have many more gigs working alongside him or with him. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for watching.